and welcome back to SuperCoach Edge. Well, we are back after our own bio break, and for good reason, as my wife and I welcomed in our firstborn son, Felix, into the world. So apologies in advance if my brain does have a little bit of a micro nap mid-ep. It does happen from time to time, normally outside of having a child, but probably just exacerbated off the back of that. But speaking of new youngsters on the block, like my own Felix, how about Tom McCarthy casually smashing out a 100-plus score on debut for the Eagles? Who would have thought? Seems like our Cashcow Saviour for the remainder of the season to finally build out our sides with the bulk premos. But to help me get over my baby brain, we're joined this week by the legend himself, in Brad, a.k.a. SuperCoach Pro. Thanks for jumping on, mate. It's been a long time coming, and it's fair to say you're having an absolutely cracking season. How goes it, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. And congratulations, firstly. So I'm excited for you with that news.
Yes, and in turn for yourself as well, congratulations, because I know you had a little newborn son as well in the months leading up to my own. So, yeah, we can perhaps lean on each other if we have micro naps. We can help each other out.
Sounds good. Yeah, I know mine won Tyson, not after Mike Tyson, but hopefully he doesn't become a North Melbourne supporter like my misso is, but this North Melbourne beanie was more just to stir you up, considering you guys played them this week, and I reckon North are a sneaky chance to win it.
Absolutely. Well, with Michael Voss coaching, anything's possible, really. Anything's possible. But how are you going, mate, with regards to your season now? I did put out a tweet saying that you were ranked 122nd overall because I had a look at your recent video and I didn't scan far forward enough because it was a lockout video and it hadn't yet refreshed. So you are actually ranked higher than that. So you've climbed the ranks even more so. You're ranked 79th, is that right?
Yeah, so one scroll from that top page and you can see it there by rankings instead. So, yeah, 79, yeah.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. In the top 100. Cheeky man. So you're absolutely smashing it. What's the secret? What's the secret to the your success this season? Because you've been playing SuperCoach for a little while.
Probably just going with my gut feeling, as cliche as it sounds. Also, not really going with the crowd picks. Like last week was Butters, but I thought Georgie Shewitt, your man, I'd go there instead.
Oh. Very nice.
A couple other things like starting a pod in Ed Richards, holding on to Rosie when the role changed. You know, it's just little things like that. Not sidewaysing myself with proper injuries. I think I've been in the top 100 or thereabouts for at least the last 2 months. So it's also to do with the starting side, which I think is very important. The last couple of years I've had a really bad start, and it's been hard to call your way back. So other than that, it's just been keeping it simple. I'm overthinking every week in the business I'm in, but I'm also just sort of listening to my own narrative instead of trying to make statistics and all this other stuff to, you know, persuade me in a way I haven't really looked before. So I'm just going by gut feeling a lot of the time.
Yeah, very good. And that's kind of the I guess the secret tonic to SuperCoach, isn't it? Like no matter how much we do that a lot of number crunching here on SuperCoach Edge, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to follow, you know, just what you sort of feel is going to happen. And as you say, that's kind of what has been the secret tonic to your own success this season so far. So full credit to yourself because, you know, no matter if you're a statistical genius, if you're a mathematical genius, it doesn't really matter. It's sort of reading between the lines and trying to get a jump on players before the rest of the competition. So really good to see.
Yeah, I think it's also value as well. This game provides it. And even if you've got to get around the 16 guy like a Cardwell, but he's, you know, priced at $4.29, you've got to take those value routes instead of, you know, don't play a trade, you know, he's coming on his buy. Like sometimes you've got to target value in order to finish off your side instead of having, you know, your Kircher at D6 and then McCarthy at flex. You're sort of stretching your field a long run. So, yeah, there's a couple of different things I've learned this season. And I suppose when you look back at all your seasons on your videos, you sort of go back and go, all right, what am I doing wrong? And I realised that the last 2 years I was probably sidewaysing too soon. Like I wouldn't let the player have at least a month and a half until I got a view. And then we've seen these players like Zorko and Merritt and all those players get their roll back and then they've, you know, bit everyone on the butt for trading them out. Yeah,
and that's, I mean, you touched on it there in terms of, like, I've been playing SuperCoach since I was in the latter part of high school, which is way back in 2005. I was going to say 2025, 2005. So 20 years ago is when I finished high school. But like since then, you're learning new things every single season, no matter how long you've been playing SuperCoach for. And, you know, I still make mistakes where I get tempted to trade out players probably before I should. And you touched on it there in terms of trading out sideways in blokes. You know, probably before you need to, and you're kind of reactionary and stuff. And that's one thing that I've learned in recent seasons, where you've got to have a little bit more patience, I think, and especially guys that have role changes. It happens to so many players across the board. We said it was Sheasel, Merritt, even Marich as well from the Eagles. Guys you kind of have to sort of read into, like, will they get their role back, or
Yep.
will perhaps that role change be permanent? So yeah, that's something that you learn through experience, isn't it?
Yeah, 100% what you touched on. Exactly, my same thought of process. I also think like little things like, the little group chats we have, or the things on X in the
Yep.
last 12 months helps you find statistics that you do need, though. Like, it's such a fine
Mm.
balance of what you have to take in and not take in, because, I'll look at players for now from the fixture on the run home, but I won't look at the fixture from round 8, because there's still, 2/3 of the season to go. But
Yeah.
back after the season, after the buys, that's when those things make more sense. And also going a little bit Potter-like, because if you grab the same player everyone else is grabbing, how are you going to really rise up in the ranks? I'd rather be top 10 or, out of the top 1K than sort of float in a little bit of a no man's land for my ranking this season. So hence why I'm going for broke now, and considering going down to 4 trades, which is probably something I'm going to touch on, is how many trades you should have after the
Mm.
buys. And everyone's different depending on their rookie cover, but we've seen like this year we've actually gotten away scot-free a lot of times with the injuries. But who's to say the back half doesn't give you, 6 injuries and you've got 4 trades left, and then we're skating on thin ice there as well.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's one thing that caught me out last season, even though this is obviously before the flex came in, and I had a 23rd man. That was McCarthy, as it turned out. And I had him because he was dual position player, could swing between defense and midfield. And I thought, oh, here we go, just provide cover, also loopy scores off the bench. And as it turned out, I think it would have been round 17, maybe 18. Gorn went down injured. Took Miller went down injured. Rankin, I think he got suspended, I think it was first up. And I just brought him in. It was the week I brought him in, got suspended. I opted to hold him, got rid of Gorn. Oh, no, sorry, kept Gorn, who was out for a couple of weeks, and got rid of Took Miller. And then I had further injuries on top of that. I think Tom Green did a hamstring. And I think I had enough trades. It was like virtually like half a trade per round, which it was kind of like a bit dicey anyway as it was. But I figured with the 23rd man, I should be fine. As it turned out with those injuries, they got exacerbated. Charlie Curnow got injured. Rankin, he came back, then got injured again, out for the season. I think he got concussed, all that sort of stuff. And stuffed me. Even though I had more trades than I thought I actually needed, it came back to bite me in the ass, and I slid down the ranks in the sort of last month of the season. So, yeah, it's a fine line, but I feel as though in my time playing Supercoach, the one constant that you always find is injuries always strike at the back end of the season. So you've got to be conscious of that. And that's kind of what can kind of give you a little bit of a leg up over the competition. And we've seen in, recent seasons, Scott Father, good old Abs Magic, he was gunning for the top spot seasons past, and injuries curtailed him. He was run and gun. He loves, churning through the trades, as we know, but that's what caught him out. So you've got to be conscious of that. But, it's the balance between keeping trades and perhaps having depth as well on the bench. And, flex can obviously provide that as well. And a bit of an extra layer to things, isn't it, for this season?
Yeah, I think that's a leaf out of the book I've actually taken from his players. Like, I watched him that season and he was trading so aggressive. And by the time he finished the season, no one could catch him anyway because he'd banked some points. Now, running out of trades was one thing that he did to provide more points on field every single week, which you can get away with such, for so many weeks until you don't. But yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat where I might be, pushing for that top 10, but I might even run out of trades similar way and hope that, the rest around me also do. So it's a little bit of a points gap. When I look at other content creators, there's about, 500 points to almost 1,500 points between me and them, and they're like a 2 or 3K rank. So even then, like, they can't, they probably can catch me, but in the same world, like, if I keep playing aggressive, there's no way they're catching me. So I've probably got to pick other people's brains, but not overthink of it, because this year we've never had a flex until now. So it kind of makes the narrative to being a little bit more aggressive probably a thing you can do. But I'm still very hesitant on my trades this week, whether I hold the last 6 because I don't need to, or whether I be something super run and gun as we call them before, and do something that could either make or break my season. But I'm still whether weighing that up, whether to flip the coin on it or just play it safe for now, because we've still got, 9 or 10 rounds left or something like that. Yeah, it's pretty daunting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as much as I'd love to be in your position, I also am calm knowing that I'm not, because with that comes the pressure, anxiety, everything else. You sort of second guess yourself. But what you've done so far is incredible, and just keep doing what you're doing. That's the success, and what comes beyond that is probably just comes down to luck, and hopefully it's in your favor. And just got to back yourself in and do what's been successful to now. But let's kick off the episode officially, and we might start things off by having a look back at the round that was in round 14. And then we will touch on as well who was victorious between myself and Liam. We have a little head-to-head every single week. So in terms of what I scored, and I'll ask you in a moment, Brad, how you went, and obviously much better than me, because you rose up in the ranks, and unfortunately I slid. So I ended up scoring 2,035. So I'm ranked now 10,703 overall, slid 74 spots, so was slightly below par. Awfully frustrating, considering that going into the round, I had a full allocation of 23 players to choose from in terms of boiling down to the best 18. But there were, despite that minor rank slide, a heap of positives across the board. Holmes, he continued his juicy run of scoring with a 155 off the back of 128, 107 and 152. So I started with him in my team, and good to see that he's finally kick-started things now, and hopefully he doesn't attract any tags beyond what he has been scoring. And meanwhile, Kingsley, he finally saw the light and shifted Whitfield back to halfback, so he could punch out that nice ceiling score finally that I've tasted as an owner with the 140, and the first since that I traded him in 3 weeks back. But other frustrating owns in Sarong and Zorko, they both scored 142 and 123 respectively, which was refreshing to see. So long may that continue. Also, a quick shout out to Matt Carroll for re-energising his cash generation with a solid score of 82. Wasn't expecting that. I was actually considering getting rid of him, but I thought, you know what, just hold him as long as he keeps playing in Carlton's team, which I think he probably will. That's going to be a bonus. So as we we're just talking about, just having perhaps guys on the bench that you might need at some stage or another could be handy. In terms of trades, just quickly, I cashed out Vicentini for Johnson, who scored superbly and made bulk cash, whilst I upgraded Lindsay to the buttery one at his insane value. Didn't quite perhaps score as well as what we thought, but you got to have him in your team, I think, at one stage or another, depending on where you ranked, of course, if you want to, as we were chatting about just then, Brad, in terms of fading more popular owned players, that's also a play as well. But just to check out my line by line and hear about my trade plans in, I guess, more intimate detail, feel free to check out my Team Talk episode on YouTube or via audio podcast as well. Now, before I get into how Liam scored, how did you go, Brad?
Yeah, it went well for once in a bye round. I actually scored a 2,156, which I think anything over 2,000 is a par score, roughly, depending where you're ranked, because every score you get is par's different, as we know. Like my par is a lot higher than your par, etc. So, trades this week for me were pretty simple. I got rid of Shannon Neal. Please don't ask me why I bought Shannon Neal in a couple of weeks ago.
Don't worry, I brought in Vicentini, so that's like for like.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I just bought in a 200 kilo, 200 centimetre gimp of a thing. So I got rid of,
bring in the gimp.
I got rid of Elijah Hewitt because I didn't care about the extra 20, 30K. I cared about the scoring. And then I got rid of Lindsay, Mr. Subman, who just had a weird couple of weeks. And then I bought in your man, TDK. I thought he'd be the perfect flex, although it sort of kills my flexibility in my side. And then I bought Georgie Hewitt again, another one of your boys. I just think he finds the pill so often, especially he knows where to read the crumb. And I just feel like he's not a tag target. If anything, he might line up on someone at stoppage, which means he's always going to be around the ball. Wet weather coming into the season. He's going to be your cuddle man. Like, there's just nothing wrong with a George Hewitt pick. And I also needed a 2% pod in the top 1%, which I think is at about 3.2% now. And then I got rid of so there was the 3 rookies, and then I brought in Zach Johnson and Miss McCarthy. So I would have been disappointing. There's no real heroes and villains from my side. I think I just went into the round thinking it'd be a ruck captaincy, but I actually went down the last minute of going Brayshaw because I thought, I thought everyone's zigging, so might as well zag, and I thought there might be points on the board for a Brayshaw type, and I only gained myself an extra 6 or 7 points between him, DeConning.
It all counts.
But it all counts, like you say. So, Brayshaw for me. And again, I'm probably going to go Brayshaw into Richards this week, which I'm sure we'll touch on later. But no real villains either. To score, that high, it means, those a couple 20s were after day wicks and stuff were out of my side. But, just scores quickly, like a 109, 129, 96, 117, 123, 138, all these big scores.
Yeah, wow.
There was nothing in my side that I could actually scream about or rage trade and whatever. So for me, that's what makes it difficult this week. There's no real flaw barring Matt Roberts.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, for you as well, it just comes down to trying to find, as you touched on, like you got to zig whilst others zag type thing, and try and find those little ways that you can edge back ahead of the competition, those people ahead of you, to borrow our moniker. But looking really good. Great score by you. And for Liam, he scored 2,048. So very similar to myself, actually pipped me in our head-to-head, would you believe, to the tune of that 13 points. And just to recap, previous 2 weeks as well, because we have, of course, had a couple of bye rounds ourselves in round 12. So Liam, he took the chocolates 1781 to 1762. And round 13, I came out on top with 1934 to 1786. So the ledger between us in our head-to-head now sits 9 wins to 5, with Liam cutting the win-loss ratio from 5 down to 4, but the differential in points has increased between us with from 460 to 576. So now is the fun part of our episode, Brad, because it's time to unveil our wrap-up of the week in parody song form with the Round Remix.
Captain Loophole, double score dream, best 18 heroes, that's the ultimate scheme. SuperCoach hustle, points on the board, every player stats like a secret hoard. But now is the time to get your fix. It's the SuperCoach Edge Round Remix. Round Remix.
So each week we hit play on a parody song which best summarizes the round that was. Now, this round's remix track is one that pays tribute to a bloke who absolutely blew us away on debut for the Eagles. Some did go early on him as a bottom price rookie, but I can assure you that no one would have expected the 133 that he scored on debut. It is Tom McCarthy, Mrs. McCarthy, as you mentioned earlier, our Cashcow Saviour, of which the song is titled. So let's press play on Cashcow Saviour.
Rising high where the Eagles boast. Mature age rookie breaking the chain. Tom McCarthy's here to change the game. Cashcow Saviour, watch him soar, racking up points like never before. SuperCoach dreams coming alive. Tom McCarthy keeping us in the drive.
So that just summarizes nicely. I guess the ins and outs, incredible. I think he had, 31 disposals. He took a bulk of marks, 10 kick-ins, just on debut, the absolute pig that we didn't know we needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two things for this. He's probably the saviour for people's D6 or flex, but also the saviour for, a 24th in, round 20 or 21. Who would have thought that West Coast's best player is actually a mid-season draft player? Is probably going to win their best and fairest for the rest of the season. He's better than Harley Reid already. I'm calling it.
I know, exactly.
It just shows how much talent there is in these other leagues that just haven't been found yet. Yet you've got Harley Reid that wants all this money, wanting to come to Richmond, Essendon, or Geelong. I'd rather this bloke instead, who was in our VFL program, I believe. So,
oh wow, look at that! Yeah. You got the footy factory happened down there at the Tigs.
Yeah, we'll get there in a couple of years' time as well, I reckon. But hopefully Tassie's side doesn't come through anymore. But anyway, I won't talk about that. I'll get in trouble. Yeah,
that's right. Get people throwing tomatoes at you on stage. Of course. Now is the time to chat about, we touched on it just earlier in terms of trades. So let's have a little bit more of an intimate chat about it because the round 15 buy is on the horizon. So let's jump in and trade talk with The Price is Right.
The price is right.
The price is wrong, bitch.
So for those tuning in for the first time, The Price is Right is a segment where we discuss potential trades, trade targets from week to week, or whether a specific player under question should even be traded at all. So the first category that we touch on, as always, is You're Fired. So we have first up Henry Hustwaite, midfielder, 175.5k with a break-even of 72 and has the buy this round. 32% of the competition held onto Hustwaite in hopes that he would return to the side and increase his price given his lowly break-even. Well, he did return, but it wasn't to great effect with a score of just 4 and being subbed out tactically. Fair to say his prospects as a cash cow are now over and likely his time in the Hawks senior side as well. Time to cash out the 54.3k he has made in profit and perhaps use him in a trade for McCarthy if you need to find ways to bank the extra money that would give you 76k and really make the most of it. So Hustwaite, is he in your team, Brad, or was he, and have you got rid of him?
Yeah, he's in my team and he's an absolute pleb. He needs to get delisted. I've never seen a worse bloke, barring Samson Ryan, play football this season. So,
or Samson.
Oh, mate, if you could get rid of Hustwaite and make 70k, then sure. But I think it's one of those guys where there might not be enough cash for an upgrade here. But yeah, people are getting desperate. I'm one of them. So I might look to use him or Clark's money. So it's definitely time to go if you can get a decent upgrade from his money. But if you can't, I wouldn't sideways a rookie to him just in the buyers. It's not worth the trade, in my opinion.
Yep, spot on. Totally agree there. Another guy as well that I see a lot of people, a bit of a higher price point, a lot of people are trading out. It is Luke Pedlar as a forward, 203.7k with a break-even of 48. Has the buy this round as well. And unfortunately, Pedlar, he became another victim of the sub on the weekend, scoring just 35, but hasn't been reliable in his scoring either way after his start of 79 and 67 with just a 37 against the Lions in his third game. He's increased 53.3k, similar to Hustwaite, and has the buy this week, as I mentioned, so it might be time to punt him, especially if you're in need of a warm body that isn't on the buy. So I would give you a little bit more cash if you're trading him down to, say, a McCarthy. If you can swing DPPs because Pedlar is a forward, you might be able to do that. That'll give you over 100k profit. What do you say to those people that have Pedlar? Do you recommend trading him?
Well, it's hard to read into what they're going to do with his job security, but you think it's there for the meantime. Again, like if you're happy with making the X amount of money on that trade, it's probably worth a shout because he's on his buy anyway. For me, it's sort of flip a coin. Like there's all these rookies at very similar price. It depends which line you want to strengthen. So, example, my forward line, I got Day Wicks as cover and Simpson as cover, which is absolutely nothing. So if I had a Pedro, I'd actually be pretty happy. So in that sort of mindset, I'd probably rather keep a Pedro because these other forward rookies like a Butler, etc., they're the other guys you're going to take a punt on. At least you know Pedro's going to play some games from here on out. So probably would be a hold for this because I can imagine everyone would have a bit of a dead F8 in my opinion. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it probably comes down to other options that if you need to trade someone out, I always look at job prospects is obviously the first and foremost, scoring potential as well, and then the break even is gettable, 48, and I think if you hold him, he probably will stick around in Adelaide's team, even if he is dropped when he comes back from the bye. no harm done. You can trade him out to McCarthy. McCarthy's on his buy as well, so he's probably the prime trade out if you can, again, swing DPPs. So no real harm, I think, in keeping him at least for another week, as long as you don't need that extra player for cover. But as you mentioned, who do you trade him to? Like, there aren't really too many rookies apart from maybe like Butler's on the buy as well. Like, all the guys that you want to trade down to make cash kind of really aren't available per se. So yeah, I reckon probably hold this week, but if you do need a little bit of cash, yeah, you might have to trade him a little bit early and take that punt if you don't have anyone at a higher price point to generate cash.
The only way before we touch off Pedler is to get an upgrade from him. So go him to a Sam Darcy or a Horn Francis, but you certainly wouldn't want to go down, I don't think, in my opinion anyway. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if you don't have any players to trade down to, perhaps, yeah, if you've got money in the bank, especially, use him as a stepping stone upwards. That saves you the heartache there. Let's move on to the last in this category here, and it is Levi Ashcroft, mid-forward, 359.1k with a break-even of 100 now, and has the bye next round. And Ashcroft's scoring has taken a little bit of a nosedive over the past 3 weeks with scores of 59, 66, and 45, seeing his season average drop from 78.6 to 73.9. And with the declining scoring, his price too has dropped 33k and heads into round 15 with that break-even of 100 before heading into his bye next week. He even got subbed in, I think it was round 12, so it seems as though the first-year youngster is slowing down, which kind of tends to happen. And the Lions are aware of easing his load, I think, before they head into the bye and the second half of the season. So might be a good time to cash him out before he loses more cash, or at least, you know, as we mentioned, if you can't trade down, use him as a stepping stone upwards, which probably is more applicable to him with that higher price point. Do you still own him, Brad, or did you punt him already?
I punted him about a month ago before he got subbed. I think he had 1 or 2 good scores after I got rid of him, but I have a rule that I don't fall in love with rookies. So, you know, there's people that go, I'm going to hold X player throughout the buys because he scores well, but we're now seeing a drop-off because these first-year players tend to. So I think rookie-wise, I try to target, if I can, second or third year players because we see a lot of regression in the back end of the season for first year players. So for me, again, you're going to upgrade this guy. There's not one that stands out. If McCarthy was off his bye, it'd be an obvious shout, you know, if you had him in the midfield. But, you know, people aren't going to be able to afford to do much. They might have to leave him as a flex player also. So, yeah, the 100 break even for me says jump off. Considering he's got his bye next week, I'd rather cash him out now, get a primo on field for the next 2 weeks, rather than lose 20, 30K and then have him not play the week after anyway.
Yep, spot on. Exactly right. Nice little segue as well into a few guys that are still sort of in the firing line as we categorize it, but guys that you might actually hold depending upon cover, everything else, and options that you could trade them to, downgrade options, everything else. So the first up is Elijah Hewitt, mid-forward, 351.1k, break-even of 45, and has the bye this round. So he's had a little bit of a renaissance in recent weeks because he's had scores of 92, 85, and 76, which has seen him kickstart his cash generation and increase further upwards 70k across that time to bring his total season profit to 228.3k, which is quite handy. Now, he does have a great role swinging between half forward, where he has been kicking goals, and running through the engine room as well, averaging over 50% CBAs. And whilst his break-even is still achievable in line with his current run of form, it's, I think, a great time to cash him out, or at least use him as a stepping stone to a primo, given that he heads into his bye. I'm an owner of Elijah Hewitt, and I am trading him out this round. I think I always had planned to trade him out heading into his bye. Again, you could probably hold him if you want to heading into next week, but he's not going to be a keeper. And I think at that price point, it's kind of a little bit of a waste, I think, if you're not playing him on field, if he's just on your bench as bench cover. So for me, I'm pulling the trigger and trading him out whilst he's on his bye. What are your thoughts, Brad?
Well, I pulled the trigger last week to get the real Hewitt in Georgie boy.
Hewitt for Hewitt. Love that.
Yeah, literally. I could have made an extra, whatever it was he made this week, maybe 20K or something like that. But I also wanted the 70 points
on field
Hewitt would get on top of that, especially for my ranking. Like, if I probably wasn't in the position and I was in, top 1 to 5K, I'd probably hold and juice out the cash. But I've actually got to play super aggressive. So this week, I do exactly what you're doing this week and cashing him out at his not max price, but close enough too, because he starts to see this place at 300K. You look at their projections and you realise they're only going to make an extra 10, 15, 20K that week. But you've got to
Yep.
also realise that these premos, as you'd know anyway, go up 20, 30K because now their break-evens are
Offset.
so
Yeah.
there's a bit of a balance. Do you want the points? Do you want the cash? What do you need for your team is so team dependent. So when we get given trade plans, we can't see it as a whole point of view. So sometimes I'd actually advocate for holding guys like this because I see people's cash gen and that's their last good cash cow. So yeah, for me, you're trading him on his buy regardless of this Elijah Stewart chat.
Yep. Love that. Summarised it perfectly. Next guy is Matt Flynn as well. 383.2K with a break-even of 78. Again, has the buy this round, and he is, I think, ripe for upgrading, ripe for the picking. Hasn't been able to recapture the heights of his 111 score against the Saints in round 10, and actually has lost 12K over that time. So I was kind of kicking myself after he scored that 111 because that was the week that I traded him out, and I'm like, oh, here we go. He's going to, kickstart his cash gen. Thankfully, hasn't as a non-owner now, but a little bit concerning that he is sharing the ruck load as well with BJ Williams back in the team, which only impacts his scoring output further. So it's a great time, I think, to bid farewell to Matt Flynn.
I agree. I think he's actually been a pretty mediocre cash cow. I think we could have bought him like 260. He's around 380 now, so he made 120K. Like he's been pretty mediocre. Just summarises West Coast, but like they need a proper ruckman because BJ Williams and Flynn ain't it. And for me, like Flynn's just going to hover around that 380 to 400 mark if he gets one spike score, but he just looks outclassed every time he's against an opponent, or he'll have a good half and then he'll completely fade out because the tank's not there, or BJ will go there instead as well. So yeah, I'd get rid of Flynn for sure. He's in a lot of people's flex where I just think you just spend the extra 150, 200K and upgrade him for a proper guy that's actually going to get points on the field instead of a 70 because a Clark can do that any given week. What's the point of having him there at flex?
Yeah, exactly right. That's a good comparison, actually. Just like if other guys that you have on the bench are scoring just as well as him on field, it's like, well, it's kind of a waste to have someone at that price point that's not delivering and not really showing a ceiling score. So, yeah, love that. Next up, we have Sandy Brock. So defender, 270.9K, break-even of 48. And again, has the buy this round, another Eagle. So he has been a little bit of a hidden gem of a cash cow for the Eagles, profiting well over 170K and benefited from the absence of Gov, obviously, to help solidify his spot in the Eagles side. And going into his buy, I think, again, probably a great time to wave the trade wand and turn him into a bag of cash, I think. For me anyway, I think. Kind of a little bit of a balancing act, as we've been alluding to in terms of you don't want to trade out all of your cover off the bench, but, guys that are going to allow you bulk cash to then fund an upgrade, I think kind of makes a bit of sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sandy Brock, if he paves the way for an upgrade, then you just shoot for the stars and go for it. You don't hold on another week or two, especially considering out of buys, you want to be fully upgraded. So that's the thing you got to really got to be concerned about. When we come to round 17, you don't want to be having a D6 of I don't know, Sandy Brock, for example. You want to get rid of him because the flex will cover him off, but I've seen a lot of people flexes and they might not actually be covered off at all. So, yeah, I'd definitely get rid of a guy like Brock as well. The last Brock I remember was on Pokemon, and he was he was my favourite. I loved him. It's probably sums up how I am as a character, but let's not go there. But yeah.
I think I'm talking about Peter Brock, the racing legend, or Eddie Brock, who is the moniker of or Venom, the Marvel character. But a few Brocks around there, that's for sure. Well, let's jump into now the trading candidates, the more fun part of the trade chat. So Callum Mills, going to start with him. He's a defender only, which is annoying because I thought he might be a bit of a DPP defender mid, but he's only defender, 357.2K with a break-even of 34. So I'm keen to get your thoughts on him in a moment. His first two games of the season, he has been able to score 62 and 107 with suspension between those games and then a bye giving us all the more time to bring him into our sides. Mills has largely been played off a little bit of half-back, drifting along the wing, patrolling through the middle of the ground as well. And he also took a couple of kick-ins in both matches, given 14% as well, CBAs in his first game. So as yet, his role is kind of a little bit up in the air, a little bit of a bit part man, but historically we know the type of damage that Mills can do with averages 101.4, 112.4, 115.1, 91.5 and 74.4 dating back to 2020. So to get Mills at his current price point, I think is insane value. Do we know if he can recapture that form? Can he stay durable? That's really the unknown. But given that uncertainty, I think he is the perfect player to have in your flex position to filter out any low scores and capitalize on those massive ceiling scores that he can output. Now, I do know a little birdie told me, Brad, just because we're obviously in a little Twitter group together, You brought him in a week early, I think, than most people would have. And are you happy as an owner of Mills?
Well, it's a tough question. Yeah and no. If I knew McCarthy was going to bang out a 130, probably not. So it kind of gives me an avenue to go, all right, I'm going to get rid of Angus Clark this week, bring in McCarthy so I can loop a Mills and McCarthy for D6. And then to summarise the rest of what you're saying about Mills, I think if you got McCarthy and he's your D6 or D7, I don't think there's a real reason to grab Mills now because you're going to save yourself 150k or whatever it is. It might even be 250k actually.
Yeah.
So I don't know. If I don't have him this week, I'm probably just going to wait for a McCarthy. But if you really needed a D6 or a flex, I can see it. But I think the other thing I've noticed on Twitter and all these other comments is people grabbed in Kirch for that same role for a D6. So I think if you didn't go Kirch and you've got McCarthy and you want to loop at Mills and McCarthy together, that's fine. But I also think he averages McKercher for the rest of the season. Not too worried about the role either. I watched him pretty closely. His time on ground for the first game was pretty low, so to get a 68 from something like 60% Tog was fine. 100 against Richmond, he sort of became a bit of a spare. He come up to stoppages a little bit as well. He certainly calls for it, but I just think at his price point, he's probably a valid pick. I'd rather pay that than $391, whatever it was the week before for McKercher.
Yep.
A bit of a butcher in the wet. Whereas I just see Mills as a pretty clean player. Despite injury, all these players can get injured from here on out anyway. So I think he's a good pick all in all.
Yep. No, you've given me a little bit of confidence as well because I'm bringing him in this week and I didn't go for McKercher and I was thinking the same thing. It's kind of like for like in a sense. And I think you can probably do as good a job, if not better, as you said there. So thank you for that, Brad. You've warmed my heart listening to your insights there. Now, we also have Zach Butters. So he's an interesting discussion point here. 569.5k with a break-even of 90. His buy is already done, which is very handy. And the buttery man himself, so he comes in at that massive bargain price at 79.4k below his starting price. Now, it mightn't seem like much of a discount, but when you factor in his massive ceiling, Butters is capable of, he throws himself into the must-have basket, I think, depending on where you're ranked. In terms of ceiling scores, he has eclipsed heights of 135, 143, 162, and 164 so far. And on top of that, Butters does come with ultra consistency, as we know, with only one score below 100 in his 10 games for 2025, which also highlights his high floor. Even in 2024, he only scored below 100 6 times from 23 games. And with season averages of 113.8 and 120.4 over his past 2 seasons, and being a cemented top 6 averaging midfielder, and he's currently ranked 6th best averaging in 2025. I don't think really we'll have to sell too much of his prospects and speak of his quality because it kind of speaks for itself. But Brad, in your position, you're probably a little bit different to majority. Are you continuing to fade him? Because I don't think he's in your team, is he?
No, he's not on my side. My team's too stacked with better players than that. So I went George Hewitt instead of him. If I'm going to bring in a player for Roberts, it's probably going to be Bont because I know he's going to bounce back and the fixture's a little bit better than what Butters has. Butters, for me, is more of a tag target, hence why I didn't pick him up. I know what he can produce and he can hurt me, but you can't have everyone. But for the value, if you've already got a Bonds and Brayshaw, then Butters is your guy. I think he's a perfect option. I couldn't tell you what I think he averages from here on out, but he certainly has a few tags coming, which might damper it a little bit. But I think come this point of season, you don't really want to pay anything more than 600k. So I think the time is right for a Butters play. Even though he's got Jordan tagged this week, I think he went 140 something against him last time anyway. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, summarised perfectly. And yeah, if you want to go for like an alternative and based upon where you're sitting as well, like if you're going for leagues even as well, based upon matchups, I think the majority of people would have Butters in their team. If you want to go for a pod or if you're, in the clouds like yourself, in terms of rank, it might be a good thing to try and sort of zig when others zag. But if you want to play it safe and go for the known quantity and quality of Butters, yeah, it probably makes a bit more sense. Now, jumping to the man we've been alluding to, Georgie Boy Hewitt, 537.3k, break even of 74, buy is done and dusted. And he's a bit of a left field option, as we spoke about, especially for those in search of a pod with just 7% ownership at the moment. But that will, of course, go up. Hewitt currently sits as the 8th best averaging midfielder and has well and truly taken his game to another level with only 2 scores below 100 and 6 scores above 120 plus across 13 games. And whilst it might not seem like it, Hewitt is at a bargain price point, as he was actually priced as high as 634 in round 8 but his price then dropped nearly 100K when an anomaly score of 64 did crop up. Either side, he scored 100, 120 the 2 games preceding and 2 games following. And the other benefit to Hewitt is the fact that, as we've spoken about, he will never attract a tag, with the likes of Cripps the first choice for that. So he has free reign to do as he pleases. And best yet, he has had his buys, so he can give you a little bit of cover across round 15 and round 16. So I'm a massive fan of Hewitt, especially at this price point. If it was priced, say, $5.90, I would say go for Butters instead of him. But I do love the fact he's a pod. I do love the fact that he is ultra consistent, and I love players of that type. So you're a big rat for him?
Yeah, big rap. I think the one thing he probably didn't mention, because you probably didn't want to think about it, is Sam Walsh is out for the next 4 or 5 weeks with a hot spot in his foot or whatever. So the CBAs, I looked into it the week before. Georgie was at like 60%. Sam Walsh's would increase by 20%. When I heard the news that Walsh was out, I was like, that's going to flip now. So, and they play this mob that are going to beat you this week. So North Melbourne can go now after that Georgie Hewitt segue. I'm actually a Tigers man. That was just sort of to stir you up a little bit. But
yeah, I like that. I enjoyed it.
I just think, like you say, like at that price point, it's the guy you want to pick, because you got North Melbourne this week, who's probably going to go 140 on. And then, I think from memory, CBAs for inside mids, Carlton actually had a really good run for that when you sort out by average. I can't remember what exactly. It might have been top 5 at least, whereas Port Adelaide were at least 5 pegs behind that. So for me, I just think George Hewitt's the guy. I never really watched him this closely. I remember a couple of seasons before that back injury had a really good breakout season as well, like really good scores. And I just saw the way he worked contest to contest. He got burnt a couple of times when he went forward as well by his teammates. But he's always looking for the open space when he does come back. Like he seems like he's a pretty good two-way runner, but also when the ball's coming from the opposition and there's, your 2 big guys, standing there going for it, he's literally sitting at the drop of the ball and he's giving a handball pass to the runner coming past him. He doesn't overthink things. He doesn't. He likes to stand up in a tackle too, so he will take the game a little bit. I haven't seen him get caught too often, but I do notice that when he does,
very strong on the hips. Yeah,
he doesn't get scared or worried. Like the hips are so strong as a Hewitt guy, and when the clamps are on, he's doing it to an opposition which is going to bring him to the ball anyway. But for me, I think he's 30 this year, I believe. So I just think this is probably the last year I'll pick a Georgie Hewitt type before he starts sort of declining potentially, because we know players over 30 start to do that. But yeah, perfect pick for my situation, not for everybody, but I certainly see an avenue where if we, maybe saw that 60 score not in his system, he'd probably be the highest traded in player this week, I reckon.
Yep. Yeah. Very, very big value. And as you mentioned, as you mentioned there with Walsh not playing, his CBA's jumped up from 60% the previous week to 83% with the absence of Walsh. So he will get that. And even when Shearer was out, it was round 9, he still had CBAs in the 80s as well. So I think that probably will hover sort of maybe high 70s to low 80s, what it has been as well. So love that. He's probably our better contested player in the engine room. And you alluded to it there, a great two-way runner, very defensively minded, which a lot of Carlton midfielders aren't that way inclined. So a very, very smart footballer. The only thing that is kind of a little bit of a knock against him is he loves to handball more often than not. He's a link-up player, as you mentioned there. Early in the part of the season, he was sort of the differential between kicks and handballs are very even, and he had quite a few number of high scores. And you'll see there's a little bit of a correlation there. When he started to handball more, his scores started to dip a little bit, sort of closer to the 110 to, pushing up to 120 at various stages. Still has that high ceiling, which is very good, but it's that reliability that I really love about Hewitt. So love him as a selection. And if you're keen on a midfielder and especially a pod, look no further than him. Let's round things out now with the last couple of guys in terms of trade and options, one of which is a very tantalising prospect, Sam Darcy. Now, I'll be keen to get your thoughts in a moment on him. As a forward, 461.3K, break-even of 147, buy is done and dusted. And it may sound silly suggesting that Darcy is a little bit of a trade-in option, considering he does have that large break-even and in all likelihood might drop in price, or wait and see there because he is facing your mob. But then, you look at and factor in that Richmond, they are struggling. They are a developing team. He could really have Richmond like his plaything. Richmond are currently giving up the 4th most points to opposition key forwards as well, with the likes of Hayward, 93, Hayden McLean, 79, Callum Brown from the Giants, 96, and Riccardi, 93, cleaning up, which makes you wonder the level of damage a more talented Darcy can do to the Tigers' defence. So selecting key position players is always fraught with danger. Not a massive fan of it. Been burnt numerous times. Kerno most recently in the late part of 2024. But Darcy is a different beast, I think. And with scores of 76, 117, 125, 141, and 87 across his first 5 rounds of the season before he went down with injury, I think there's that. And then just the fact that he returned from injury and returned with a score of 108 against the Saints just speaks to me that he's a different beast. Discount his injury game as well, and his true average is 109 compared to 95.7, which would have him ranked as the 3rd best averaging forward, currently behind Baslenka and Jackson. So for me, he could be another perfect flex position or an eventual F6. Are you a wrap for Darcy, and are you considering him in your team, Brad?
Me and Darcy, stand at the same height, so I think.
You can look at eye level, shake his hand.
Well, yeah, or shake something else.
That's probably more so me. I'll be looking up at him, shaking something else, shaking another appendage.
Yeah, Caleb Daniels height, but I think I'd go there. Like 460, the price is there. Like he might even bang out a 140 against Tiggs. He'll be on Ben Miller, who's I'd say 10 centimetres shorter, and then Noah Bolter, who might punch the lights out, but he's also 14 centimetres shorter than him. So there's a world where
his only salvation is just to swing the arm.
Yeah, literally. Unless he's going to get clothesline, Darcy's probably kicking 6 or 7 and going 140 and breaking his break even. I don't think you have to factor out the price of the BEs too much when they're at 460, considering they might only drop 20k. And you want the points on field during the buys, and it's your last upgrade or two. You're probably not concerned about juicing out the money. So for me, you're probably going there. He's a good F6. He's probably better than your Shy Bolton picks and all that as well. I only got him discounted because he got injured early, but I think he is probably one of the pick of the week, especially for the forward line. Him and Horn Francis if he gets up.
Yep. Love that. And bit of a nice segue there from you, bro. Didn't even realise. But Horn Francis is the last one to round things out with in this category. Forward midfielder, 491.9k, break even of 131, and has had his bye. So after dropping 38.8k on his injury week against the Cats in round 10 with that score of 22, many non-owners and those that traded him out were hoping that he would drop further in price, and I was one of those. I punted him. He did, but not quite as much as they hoped in terms of the price drop, with a 136 score only seeing him drop another 7.7k. He still has a high enough break even, of course, so you could afford to wait a week if you want, especially considering he went off the ground late in the game due to a shoulder niggle on the weekend, which he is currently listed as a test for. Now, that does worry me a little bit and gives you a little bit of confidence in the fact that I opted to keep McRae compared to Horn Francis. But if he is declared fit to play, would you still take the punt at that value price point?
I think you would. His shoulder's sore from carrying that side, and probably needs a good ice buff or two to fix him. But
very good. Even if he doesn't want to, just throw him in there.
Chuck him in there. North Melbourne looks better with him too. But enough swiping. I think he's a good shout. He plays Sydney, who probably the hardest team to watch when you've got Supercoach players in there, barring North and West Coast players to watch Supercoach relevant. But if he gets up for it, he's pretty tough anyway. He's probably your guy at that price point at sub 500k just. Again, I've been tinkering with him and Darcy for Max Gorn potentially, but I'm not sure I've got the kahunas to do it. But certainly a guy on my radar and a guy I'd like to finish my side with. But I'd go there if he gets up for it for sure against Sydney. No worries.
No worries. Just quickly, do you have to head off as well after this segment?
I got about 4 minutes, 5 minutes max, yeah. Yeah,
easy. We might bid you farewell after this because after this I'm going into the captaincy segment and then it's the outro. So no worries. I can wrap it up after this and bid you farewell. Just say you're on the move. You're a busy man.
Yeah.
you got press to do.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Exactly that as well. Let's move on now to On the Bubble. So Nick Madden is the first one. We'll roll through these ever so quickly because I am conscious that you have places to be and people to see. Babies, not babies to shake, babies to kiss, hands to shake. Get that right. So On the Bubble, Nick Madden, Ruckman, 119.9k with a break-even of -89. Round 16 by does or has come in for cover for Briggs and done a considerable job, scoring 81 to 78 in his first 2 games. Has that super low break even, so could make a fair chunk of coin to the tune of, say, 50K in his first price increase. But with Briggs set to return next week, or maybe even this week, should say, from an ankle injury, we may only get a single price rise out of him unless the Giants choose to run with the 2 rucks, in which case Madden's scoring output will be impacted massively. So perhaps he isn't as an attractive option as he may look on the surface. And going into round 16, he's going to be on the bye. So, do you want to trade into a bloke that's going to be on a bye that may not even come back? Yeah, that's a bit of a risk.
Yeah, too risky for me to bring him in, I think. And any point for anyone to bring him in now, like you're probably grabbing him for those buys for coverage from maybe a ruckman that are going to be out. But yeah, with Briggs coming back to that side, you wouldn't do it. I also think GWS should probably keep Madden in the side anyway. I think he's the future. So yeah, you never know what the coach is going to do, but I certainly wouldn't bring him in and hope that after the bye he sticks. It's a no for me.
Yep. No, I totally agree. Next up, we have Sam Butler, who we spoke about earlier in the episode. Forward, 126.6K for the Hawks, break-even of -51, and has the bye this round. So we mentioned him as a prospect because he's obviously played the 2 games on the bubble. We'll chat about him in a bit more detail next round, but he has returned after a break in league that sidelined him in 2024, comes at this cheap price point, scored 55 and 70 in his opening 2 games, and promisingly has seen rotations through the engine room as well, surprisingly, 33% CBAs in both games. Has also been eased back into senior footy with 66% time on ground for both games, so can expect to see that increase, which should hopefully increase his scoring capability as well. As for his job security, which is the main thing, can't be too certain longer term if he's going to stick around in the Hawks lineup. We've seen with Hustwaite in and out of the team, there are guys to come back into Hawthorn's lineup, Sicily and the like, so I'm a little bit conscious of that, but albeit Watson came back into the team as that small forward role, Butler still kept his spot as well. Can he continue at longer term? I don't know. Probably too much of a risk for me at that sort of slightly increased price point. I don't know. What are your thoughts quickly, Brad?
Yeah, well, the only Butler I want is in my house. That's all I'm going to say.
That would be nice.
Yeah, if I win the 50K, that's what I'll do. I'll get a Butler
and a maid as well.
Yeah, well, the missus wouldn't be happy about that, but yeah.
I was going to say male maid, but now I know what you're thinking, right?
yeah. So I better wrap it up. No, something I'm going to do either, but
the duster, the black and white. Probably, I know exactly what you're thinking of. Yeah, we've all seen it.
I'm distracted now thinking about that, so I probably wouldn't go there unless, maybe I'm downgrading Pedler, but you're going to wait a week on that. Like, surely, you get the CBAs and stuff. But, I think rookies going forward in the forward line, he's probably your guy, but very risky again. Like, there's no guy I'm really certain on. Maybe your Essendon players because, a lot of them still covering for injuries, whereas Sam Mitchell's a bit of a butcher when it comes to rookies for me. So I'm very hesitant on that pick, but I still don't mind it. He played a decent game.
Yep. No, he looks pretty good. Next up, we have Harry Ralston as well from the Giants. 119.9K as a midfielder, break even a -12, but has the bye next round. Was the sub in his opening game against my mob with a score of just 3, but made his way back into the side on the weekend to score a 79 in a full game. Job security looks shaky, so a definite risk going forward, I think. But I do like him. I do like the look of him. And sort of in terms of rookies that we have available, could he carve out a spot? Maybe.
Yeah, I think for the Orange side, he's a decent shout. You just don't know about job security with this bloke either. Like, he's got VFL numbers, but when Cogs and all those other players start to come back, does he filter out? Because Giants are such a strong side on paper. Is there a role for him? But you're going to need downgrades anyway, and all these rookies are pretty skeptical anyway. So, look, if you've already got McCarthy and Zach Johnson, he's probably the guy you do go, but then he's got the bye. So it's like, if you're getting an upgrade, it's worth the punt, but you also don't want to load up on too many players on round 16 bye, which everyone's heavy on. So it really depends what your team can do. But I do see a world where he probably can stick throughout the season. We just don't know. And all you need these players to do is really make you an upgrade elsewhere. So probably shouldn't overthink it too much.
Yep. Yeah, exactly right. And yeah, round 16, got to be conscious of that because it's going to hit a lot of people hard. So yeah, something to factor in. So to round things out, we have Jack Martin forward, 150.9K with a break even of -23, has the round 16 bye as well. And yes, this is the same Jack Martin who has had countless soft tissue injuries and haunts me in my dreams, even though he no longer plays for my mob and struggles to string together consecutive games without getting injured. Whilst he finds himself in new colours at the Cats, he still comes with the same worries. As such, his lack of durability makes him a massive risk, despite that juicy break-even indicating that he could make some handy coin. Trade in at your own risk, I think, but not really one that I, myself, would advocate.
Yeah, I tend to agree. The only Martin you're going to grab is Nick Martin because this guy is so injury prone and he's not going to stay. You wouldn't think he's as injury prone as Prestia for me. So yeah, short summary, no for me.
Yep. And last couple here. So we have Will Hayes, mid forward, 113.5K, break even a -21. Has had his bye from the Pies, scored 44 in both of his 2 games, but coming out of the bye, we're unsure if he will keep his spot in the side with Lipinski, Maynard, and Schultz to return over the coming rounds. So as such, he probably isn't one to target at this stage, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. Not one for me, that's for sure. Not one I've even considered or had on my list. So you got me there.
Yep. And lastly, we have Tom McCarthy. We'll mention him, even though he's going to his bye, but is relevant as a downgrade option for those people that need cash. So defender forward, 113.5K, break even a -21. And the mid-season rookie draftee for the Eagles, absolute dynamo in his first game, smashed out the casual 133 from 31 disposals, 6 marks and 1 tackle. But what's even more impressive is firstly, he has been entrusted with taking kick-ins. He took 10, which was by far and away the most, with the next most being 2 kick-ins from Duggan. The other massive positive was his effectiveness with the ball, with 94% disposal efficiency helping boost his scoring ceiling. And whilst he is on the buy this round, if you are in the market for a downgrade option to give you cash for an upgrade, but not necessarily one that you need to play this round, look no further than McCarthy, I think. So looking very, very nice as an option.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick. I think you said forward defender, but baby brain means midfielder defender.
Yep, that's what I meant. Sorry. You pulled me up nicely.
In case some size-wise happened in the comments on YouTube later, but I think he's summarised it pretty well. The one player I didn't know that was going to go 130 or else I would have brought him in with my crystal ball this week. But yeah, there's no reason not to. Even like I'm considering it this week. I know you should trade in a player on his buy because they could get injured in training or something like that, or do a chair and do a hammy just from warming up. But yeah, for me, mate, he's probably the perfect candidate. I don't see a world where he's not 70 or 80% owned when he's on the bubble or even before then. When coming out of these buys, I think he's a great shout as the trading target you'll need for cover.
Very nice. Well, Brad, we might leave things there for yourself because I'm conscious you have to duck off. You've got, as I said, babies to kiss, hands to shake, all that sort of stuff. Red Bulls to consume to keep yourself up and about because you've got to earn the dosh for your little man as well and the family because you are a nice family man. But thank you so much for joining us, mate. Even though you're donning the opposition beanie there in North Melbourne, love that. Good bit of banter there as well that you've brought to the table. But thank you again for jumping in last second to help out co-host this episode. You've been an absolute joy, mate. All the very best with the remainder of the season to come. Let's hope that we see your name at top of the mountain for SuperCoach 2025. And before you depart as well, let us know, just remind the good folk of SuperCoach Edge community, where can we find you on YouTube?
Thanks for edging me. So, yeah.
I do that so well.
You did. They can find me on SuperCoach Pro, just as it says in the title, and you type that in SuperCoach and you'll see a little emoji with a guy picking up some free weights there. So, and on
That's
Twitter,
you.
yeah, it's me. It's literally me. Same thing, tattoos and all that. And then my Twitter is SuperCoach Pro 91, where I throw out some crazy ideas and post some weird baiting comments and stuff like that, just to get the community riled up.
We love.
Just definitely some live streams of a rookie coach after dark as well on the Saturday segment, Saturday night. Pop into that as well, and just my own stuff as well on the live streams or doing round reviews when my microphone's actually working. So thank you for having me here, and glad we did a potty because it's been a long time coming. I meant to jump on here a while ago, but we've been editing each other for this one for a while. So thanks, Damo. We
have, and we've finally arrived at a destination, you could say, to put it PG.
Yeah.
So thank you, Brad, mate. You're an absolute legend. Give everyone tuning in, give this man a follow, give him a subscribe on his channel because he knows his stuff and he is ranked where he is because of that very fact. So thank you again, mate. And no doubt we'll catch up very, very soon.
All right, sounds good, mate. Thank you again for having me, and thanks for the plug. I appreciate it a lot.
Pleasure, mate. No worries. All the best. Take care.
Cheers, mate. See ya.
It is time now, though, to head into chatting about all things captains with that segment. That's right. It is I'm the Captain Now.
Look at me. I'm the captain now.
So I'm the Captain Now. We chat about what VCNC options you've got for the upcoming round of SuperCoach. As always, we've scrounged through the data and found the best options for you to consider and narrowed it down to our top options. First up, we have Marcus Bontempelli. Was tagged into oblivion last week by Windhager, but has ample opportunity to make amends with a juicy encounter with Richmond, who concede the third most points to opposition midfielders. Even better is Richmond is the opponent that Bont holds his best average against, with 128.3 from 11 games, with 135, 122, 153, and 136 in his most recent 4 encounters. Lockety lock, I think, if you are an owner of Bont. And hopefully he can repay the faith for those of us that went early on him, which I did 2 weeks ago. Next up, we have Tristan Cherry. And Cherry, he let us down last round with a non-existent last quarter, marooning him just above the ton. But this round, he faces off against TDK, who he has scored 144 against back in round 6. And you only really need to see his recent run of games heading into last round's downer to be given a virtual upper, with scores of 144, 158, 146, 186, 150, 126, and 153. So quite the numbers there, and hopefully he can bounce back. Next up, we have Lockie Whitfield. Now, Kingsley finally came to his senses and swung Whitfield back to his usual role in defence, to be his usual pig self with the footy, helped, of course, with the return of Callaghan. But that saw him also take back the mantle of the chief kick-in taker with 12 compared to Ash's 6. He now faces the Suns, who he has scored 137, 87, and 133 against in his past 3. So a nice option there. We also have Andy Brayshaw, and spoke about it with SuperCoach Pro as an option for him. And Andy has had his way with the Dons in recent games with scores of 137, 129, and 132. And without Sam Durden there to be a pest, Brayshaw could be in for a solid game. The only question is whether Scott asks Setterfield to step into those shoes of being said pest and maybe puts a little bit of a clamp down. But I think Andy Brayshaw has kind of avoided the tag more often than not and has gone to Sarong instead. So I do like Andy Brayshaw. And lastly, we have Tom Green. Has a nice matchup with the Suns, who concede the most points to opposition mids over the past 5 games. And Green also enjoys playing them, with his previous 3 against them reading 117, 109, and a 147. Now, onto our captaincy head-to-head tips between Liam and myself. Let's recap back in round 12, of course, before we went into our bye. Liam had the first choice and took Gawn, who scored a 110 against the Saints in round 12, whilst I opted for Neil. Against the Dons that I was expecting a massive score from, didn't happen. Thanks, Neil, who went a disappointingly 89 against the Dons, which gave Liam the 21-point win. That gives him his 5th win to my 6, and the differential in points has actually now swung in Liam's favour by 15. So it is my 6 wins to Liam's 5, with the differential of 15 in Liam's favour. Now, heading into round 15, I have the first choice, and I'm going to opt for LeBont. I don't think I can look past that. Career best average against this mob, conceding pretty much bulk points to opposition mids, and Bont has to bounce back. He's going to come out breathing fire, I think. And when that happens, more often than not, he goes big. So I'm going to go for the Bont. And Liam hasn't said who he's going for as yet. I've sent him a text, but we'll see what he says. I assume he's going to go for Cherry. If it's any different, we'll find out next round. But he is, I think, will be going for the big hot cherry pie. With that brings us to the end of the episode. But before we go, of course, don't forget to follow us on, of course, YouTube. Simply search SuperCoach Edge, and don't forget to subscribe to be notified of when our content drops from week to week. Twitter, just search at SuperCoach_Edge. You can find myself at DamoJ88 and Liam at LiamEvans_95. Facebook, Insta, TikTok, just search SuperCoach Edge, and you will find us there. So with that, ladies and gents, best of luck heading into the second last bye round, round 15. Hopefully you can come out unscathed and post a very nice score so you can climb the ranks. And we'll see you next week to do it all again. We'll see you then. Cheers.